Hello everyone, happy Tuesday. It's time for another episode of Tuesday Live at 5. This is Lena Gersa. I'm an independent Stampin' Up! Demonstrator from Cambridge, Ontario, Canada, where it is storming right now. It just started thundering like 2 minutes before I went live. And I am all about the Seasonal Branches bundle from the Stampin' Up! 2023-2024 annual catalog. Now, this is a bundle that is easy to overlook. As you're flipping through the catalog, it's easy to just kind of skim it right by because it's not part of a suite, doesn't have coordinating DSP or other embellishments. But I got to tell you, this is one of the best value items in our catalog. Why? Because it is super versatile. You can make cards for so many different occasions and seasons just with this one stamp set, simply by changing the color scheme. So I'm going to show you some ideas. I'm going to make 3 cards with you, 2 really cute fun folds. And then I'm also going to show you some other ideas that really sort of showcase the versatility of this amazing bundle. So let me pull up my video here on my iPad so I can see who is joining me on this stormy Tuesday afternoon. Let's see who's here. Come on. There we go. All right. Laura's here. Who else is here? There's Joyce and Linda. Hello, ladies. Welcome. Hope you are staying dry and safe from the storms that are passing overhead right now here in Cambridge. All right. So let's get to some stamping. I'm going to show you the bundle and then we're going to get right to it because as I said, I have 2 really cute fun folds and they're not super involved, but they're going to take me a little bit to show you. So I don't want to do too much talking today. So let's get to it. I'm going to flip the camera. And we're going to get right into some stamping. Oh, I'm a little off center today. Oh, Siri thinks I'm talking to her. This happens to me. I don't know what it is that I'm saying that my watch thinks I'm talking to them. All right, here we go. Let's get that straight. Looks not too bad. Okay. So, you're joining me for inspiration and to enjoy the air conditioning. Great idea, Jean. That's the best place to be on a hot day. It has been certainly hot and humid here as well today, and we are now paying for it with some pretty loud thunderstorms happening right now overhead. All right, so here is the Seasonal Branches bundle in the catalog. It's on page 21. Retails here in Canada for $72.75. That's a discounted bundle price. And so many possibilities with this set, as I mentioned. So let's get to it. I'm going to show you some projects. Here, before I do, is the bundle. So we have our stamp set. So we have different foliage to go with our branches, leaves and buds or berries, and some blossoms depending on the season. We can also add some apples. We've got an adorable little bird that we can add, and then some sentiments for plenty of different occasions. And then, of course, we have our dies, lots of open dies that coordinate with the stamped images. And then, ooh, that was a loud crack of thunder. Wow, it is so dark outside my window. It looks like nighttime. I just looked up. It is stormy. So we have as well some branches. So this cuts a thicker branch. This is a little bit thinner. Okay, and we've got some leaves and some flowers. You're going to see all of those in action today. But that is the bundle. So let's get to it. Hi, Sonia. Thanks for sharing. Welcome. So I thought I would start with a really quick and easy fall card. Yes, I'm already thinking about fall, not because I'm dying for my summer holidays to end. They just started, but because we have to think ahead as crafters, right? We're always kind of a season ahead. And I've been making Christmas cards all week, prepping for my Christmas in July event. So yep, it is that time of year we have to start thinking about Christmas events and fall occasions. So we're going to work on this card. This would make a lovely sympathy card. You're in my thoughts. May you feel sheltered in the love that surrounds you. So we're going to start with a piece of Cajun Craze cardstock. It is 4 by 5¼ inches. And I'm going to bring in my Cajun Craze ink pad. And we're going to use this leaf stamp. So I'll just bring in the stamp set so you can see it's this one here. Now this is actually designed to coordinate with this branch. They actually, when you stamp these two together, it looks like the leaves actually are on the branch. But we're going to use this just sort of as a random leaf image, and we're going to stamp all over our cardstock here. And I want to make sure I'm getting good images here. Inking up well. I'm not going to worry too much about the center because, again, we're going to be covering that up. But I am going to stamp several leaves in and around. Let's see if we can get one in there. And there. And we'll add another little guy there. That looks pretty good. Okay, now I also wanted to add just a little bit of shading. So I'm going to bring in my blending brush, again with the Cajun Craze ink, and we're just going to darken down the edges of this cardstock a little bit. I love blended shaded color for fall. Reminds me a little bit of the beautiful foliage that we get here at that time of year. So we're just going to darken this down a little bit to just sort of warm up this whole look. I got to keep talking so you can't hear the thunder outside my window. It is pouring rain. We got all of our patio cushions put away and the cats brought in from the deck before the skies opened. So everybody is sound asleep upstairs, which is the perfect way to spend a rainy afternoon, right? All right. Hi, Tracy. Welcome. So there we go. That is our background. Now, I then have a piece, or a die cut label. This is from the Nested Essentials dies. So these are an online, no, they're not. They are a standalone item in the catalog. So they're not part of a bundle. They are just a set of dies. And there are 3 different shapes that all nest within each other. So we have this fabulous label. This is the largest label from this particular shape. And I have embossed it using the Leaf Fall embossing folder, which is an online exclusive item. The Leaf Fall folder was in the holiday catalog last fall and is still available, but as an online exclusive item. All right. So we are going to darken this down with a little bit of Early Espresso ink. So I'm going to bring in my ink pad, set my stamped piece aside for a minute, and my blending brush, and we are just going to darken down this Crumb Cake cardstock with our espresso ink. And what that does is it really makes that embossed pattern just pop. It looks so cool. So we're just going to kind of come around and blend this out. Again, I'm not worrying too much about the center because, again, that's going to get covered up with our stamped label. But we'll just darken down these edges. See if I can get rid of those streaks a little bit. There we go. Isn't that beautiful? Love that look. Hi, Deb. You made it. Welcome. All right, so that is going to get glued onto our stamped panel, just like that, just glued flat. So we'll just add a little, actually I'm going to use some liquid glue because my seal will pull apart my embossed Crumb Cake. I find Crumb Cake is the worst when I use it with a 3D embossing folder. I find it's the worst one for separating when I use my Stampin' Seal. So I tend to always use liquid glue when I am adhering an embossed Crumb Cake piece. So there we go. Make sure that's relatively straight. Okay, now that is going to get layered on an Early Espresso mat. So this is 4 1/8 by 5 3/8. This one I will use my seal on because we don't have to worry about embossing. So we're going to pop that onto our mat. Just like that. And then we're going to go ahead and glue that onto our card base as well. So our card base is Crumb Cake cardstock, 5.5 by 8.5, scored in the middle at 4 1/4. So we'll fold that in half along our score line. Hi, Laura. Are you getting storms in Ohio? We certainly are getting blasted with thunderstorms right now. You may hear the thunder rumbling in the background. I am in the basement, so it does dampen the noise a little bit, but it certainly is booming out there right now. All right, so there we go. Now, next we're going to layer 2 of the die cut leaves. So this is the same stamp. I've just got a little scrap of cardstock on there. This is the same leaf stamp. I stamped again in Crumb Cake ink on, not Crumb Cake, Cajun Craze ink on Cajun Craze cardstock. And then I die cut the leaves. And all we're going to do is just glue those to our label. They are going to end up peeking out from behind our sentiment, just like that. So quick and easy. I mentioned when I posted this card this morning that this is a super quick and easy card to put together, and I wasn't lying. It really is quick and easy. So we're just going to pop this on. There's one. And I'm just going to add an extra bit of seal here to make sure this stays put. And that one's going to go on just like that. Okay. Our label is going to go on here, but before we do that, we're going to add some of our die cut branches. So there's two different dies. And again, I'm just going to pull in the die set. So these are these two dies. These two cut larger branches. They're actually designed to be used with the stamps. But if you wanted a thicker branch, you could use those ones as well. All right, so these ones, I kind of wanted the look of twigs, really. So I'm going to trim this, and I'm going to trim it kind of right here, because I'm going to use that extra little bit on my card as well. So there's one. We're going to add this guy. I'm going to add just a bit more seal. Pop this on there. And then this little guy, just going to trim this a little bit so it looks a little bit more like a twig, is going to kind of come up. We'll put him on this side like that. Okay. Now we're going to stamp our label. So our label is this, again, same set of dies, the Nested Essentials, but this is the smallest label. So you can see the difference in size. So this is just die cut from white cardstock. And we are going to stamp You're in My Thoughts in Early Espresso ink. So we'll ink that up. Gonna move this closer to me so I can see what I'm doing. There we go. And then I wanted just a little hint of a bare branch in the background. So I'm going to use my Crumb Cake ink and my little branch stamp, and I'm going to stamp off and then stamp on my label once, and then again twice. Okay, so there is my label finished. Now that is going to get adhered to our card like this, but we're going to do a little bit of embellishing here with some linen thread. So I'm going to take my seal and I'm going to run it across the back of my label. This is my stamped label. And then I'm going to take my linen thread, I'm going to wrap it around my fingers a bunch of times. And trim it off the roll. Slip it off my fingers, and then I'll just move this over so you can see what I'm doing. I'm just going to take those loops and kind of let them relax and stick them down on my label. This is a really easy way to get that sort of loopy thread look without fighting with the thread. Okay. Now the one thing that I always tend to do is I tuck in my my ends, because I don't want the ends to be visible. I just like to see the loops rather than the ends. Okay, just like that. So then we're going to add a couple of dimensionals. So we'll go 1, 2, 3, 4, and part of the purpose of the dimensionals is to really secure that thread in place. That's probably an excessive number of dimensionals for this label, but it does help to secure that thread. All right, so then this is going to get centered on our card, just like that. Okay, and then included in this bundle, we have these little individual leaf dies. And there is an individual leaf stamp. So we're going to add a couple of those, and I'm just going to use a couple of glue dots here. So the easiest way to deal with these is just kind of stick them onto the roll of glue dots here. I'm going to rip this off and just burnish those really well. And then I'm just going to take my Take Your Pick and pick them up and place to maneuver. Whoops, that one popped right off. To maneuver them without having to fuss. I hate having to fuss with little tiny bits and adhesive. It's really tedious, but this makes it really quick and easy. Okay, and then the last touch are some gold adhesive back sequins. So we'll just grab a couple of these and pop them on, just for a little pop of metallic there on our card. Okay, and that's all there is to it. Now on the inside of my sample, I did add a white layer. I did a little bit more ink blending with both Cajun Craze and just a little hint of Early Espresso, and then stamped my leaves again in Cajun Craze, and then added my sentiment in Early Espresso. Okay, so a really quick and easy fall thinking of you or sympathy card for our first one. And now we're going to move on to some fun folds. So let me just make some space here. I'm going to keep my espresso ink out. I'm going to get rid of my blending brushes. Get rid of that. Okay, I think we're good. All right, so next one we're going to do is this cute one. So this was one that as soon as I saw that little bird, I knew I had to make a birdhouse card. So this is actually a book fold easel card. All right, so book fold, it has that spine that is glued flat. So normally a book fold would just open up like this, flat, but this easel allows you to open it up and stand it up, and there you have your cute little birdhouse. So I'll show you how to put this together. It's really not hard. I do have a template. So I've started because what I'm finding is that I make a fun fold and then I give that fun fold away and end up forgetting how to make that fun fold. So I end up having to look for it again. So instead I started making just templates out of white cardstock. So to start, we have a piece of white cardstock that is 4 1/4 by 11 inches. So just a half sheet of cardstock. Okay. Our score lines go at 2 1/8, 4 and 5 1/2. Okay, so 2 1/8, 4 and 5 1/2. Then what we do, and I'm going to show you on my actual card base, we find the center of one short end. So a 4 1/4, this is going to be 2 1/8, the center point. Put a little pencil mark, and then we score from the first score line down on the diagonal to that center point on both sides. Okay, so that is how we create our base. So let me pull in my espresso cardstock. I've already done all of my scoring, so there are all my score lines. We're going to just start by folding. So I'm going to start at my 5 1/2 inch score line, and we're going to fold up and in. Okay, this next one is going to be our spine for our book. So we're going to fold this one back, making a valley fold. Okay, the next one is going to be a mountain because that is going to be our easel. Okay, so it's eventually going to stand up like that. Then that brings us to our 2 diagonal folds. So I'm just going to squish this flat and I'm going to fold up on the diagonal. There's 1. Here, let me open this so you can see it a little bit better. And then 2. So you just kind of want those to meet. If they're not perfect, it doesn't really matter. You're not going to see any overlap or imperfection. It's going to be hidden by what we're going to decorate with. Okay. So that's all of the folding and scoring for this card. So the first thing I'm going to do is glue these 2 little triangles shut. I'm going to add some seal. And you want to make sure they're nice and secure because this is what's going to be holding the part of your card that's going to stand up for the easel. So we're just going to fold those over and burnish them well to make sure they are secured. Okay, so then what's going to happen, our easel is going to fold up like that. Okay. All right, so we're going to set that aside for a minute, and we're going to do a little bit of work on our focal point, which is our little birdhouse. I have all sorts of little die cut bits. I did all the hard work ahead of time on this one so that you don't have to watch me futz with dies. So let's start with our base. So this is the piece that is going to get glued right onto our card. This is the largest square from the Stylish Shapes dies. Okay, it measures 2 3/4 inch, a little bit more than 2 3/4 inch square. Okay, then I have somewhere in my pile of stuff here a piece of One Horse Open Sleigh DSP. So this is from the new online exclusives that launched last week. It's a lovely wood grain pattern. And this piece is cut to 2 5/8 inches square. So we're going to start by just layering those together. Again, I will put all of these measurements up in the video description afterwards. You may want to take a screenshot of that template when I was showing it, just so that you have those measurements in picture form in case you need them. Okay. All right, so there we go. There is our foundation. All right. Next, we're going to create the roof for our little birdhouse. So I have here 2 pieces of Early Espresso cardstock. They're a 1/2 inch by 3 1/4. Okay, so 2 identical pieces, 1/2 inch by 3 1/4. And I've embossed them using the timber embossing folder just to add a little bit of wood grain texture. So those are going to get glued onto the top 2 sides. So I've got my square oriented as a diamond, and they are going to get glued along those edges to create our roof for our birdhouse. So the easiest way to do that, I'm just going to run a little bit of liquid glue along one side. I'm going to adhere my first piece and secure that. Okay. And then my next piece is going to overlap the one that I just glued at the top. Okay, that's going to form the peak of my little birdhouse here. So I'm going to put a little bit of glue there and run a little bit along the side. And so we just want to make sure, and I find that's easiest to do while I'm holding my piece, is just get that on there. And you don't have to worry about it being perfect. It's actually easier to see if you are straight, if you flip it over, okay? Because there's not a lot of contrast. There's more contrast there. But there we go. There is our little birdhouse. Super, super easy. And then, of course, we need a little door for our birdhouse. So this is a 1-inch circle, okay? I just use my 1-inch circle punch. Whatever you've got, dies or punch will work. So that is going to get glued in the middle of our little birdhouse here. Okay, so that is our foundation. Now we're going to decorate. So I have a couple more die cut, let me find them, die cut branches. So this time I have die cut them from pecan pie cardstock, and I've added some adhesive sheets on the back. Why? Because these are a big time pain in the bum to try to fuss with adhesive. Ask me how I know. The very first time I used these dies, I did not use adhesive sheets, and I lived to regret it. So I peeled my backing off. I'm going to stick most of my branch to my birdhouse here, and then I'm going to trim this off. Okay, and we're actually going to use this little piece elsewhere on our card. So I'm just going to set this aside for a minute, and we're going to come back to that. Okay, this little branch is going to kind of come up this way. So this is the smaller of the two branches. Again, I've got adhesive sheets on here. So we're just going to pop this one on, kind of coming up this way. Okay, and then are we going to add more? Sure. You know what? Let's add more. Let's do this one this way because we can. We're going to do a little different from what I did on my sample. Doesn't matter. There we go. Okay, so there are our branches. Now, I have a bazillion little die cut leaves here. Now, this die, I should mention, it actually cuts 5 leaves at a time, so it's not as fussy and annoying as you might think, okay? So you can whip out a whole bunch of these in a hurry because it cuts 5. Now, here is my hot tip for how to deal with these little teeny tiny leaves. You could use glue dots, but that's going to use a whole lot of glue dots, and I'm kind of cheap, so I don't want to use them all. So what we're going to do is just take and drop some little dabs of glue on the ends of our branches here and there. Now we're going to need to work fairly quickly because this glue will set up, but what we're going to do then is take your pick and our blue glue in and just start sticking down leaves. So I found this the quickest and easiest way to navigate and manage these little teeny tiny bits. So if you are all thumbs and you find these little pieces really frustrating, this is a great way to deal with them without really having to deal with them, if you know what I mean. Now, the one caution that I would add here as you are sticking your leaves on is you want to make sure that you're not having anything hang down below this bottom point, because that is going to be our anchor point for our easel, and we don't want anything to interfere with our card standing open. Okay, so that's just my only caution as you are adhering all of your little leaves here. I'm going to turn some of these guys over. What I love is that these dies not only die cut the leaf, but they also emboss the veins on the leaves, which just makes them look super cute. Okay, so I'm going to add a little bit more. We're going to go one here and probably one here opposite this one. And I mean, I could seriously do this all day. It's not frustrating or tedious at all to deal with them this way. Okay, so there are our leaves, really simple. And then we're going to add some flowers. Actually, you know what? We're going to add, no, I think we're good. We're going to add some flowers. So flowers, again, die cut with the dies. Okay, the die cuts 3 flowers at a time. So I've die cut them from basic white cardstock, and then I just took my light lemon lolly blends and just added a little bit of color to the center of each flower. So again, we're going to just adhere some of our flowers in amongst our leaves here. Now, keeping in mind, we're going to add our chubby little bird, so we don't want to put a flower where our bird is going to go. I'll put one back here. Our bird's going to sit right there. And we'll maybe add one here. And, oops, I grabbed a leaf. It stuck to my finger. My fingers are sticky. There we go. You just stay right there. And we'll put one more. What do we need? We need one up here, I think. All right, let's go with that for now. And then we can always add some more afterwards. All right, so now we are going to add our little bird. Again, I've already stamped him. He's stamped in Crumb Cake cardstock and then colored with Dark and Light Crumb Cake, Petal Pink, and Lemon Lolly Stampin' Blends. So that is going to get popped up on our birdhouse here. He's just going to be perched on a branch right about there. Okay. And then our sentiment, we are going to stamp on this die cut banner, again, from the Stylish Shapes dies. We're again going to stamp You're in My Thoughts in Early Espresso ink. And I'm going to pull this down again so I can see what I'm doing. Hopefully without getting my head in your way so you can see what I'm doing too. And then that is going to get adhered as well. We're going to pop that up right about there. Okay, so we'll use the edge of a dimensional sheet. Never ever waste your edges. I actually had someone once throw out the edges of a dimensional sheet at a class, and I ended up fishing through the garbage because, you know, we're not going to waste that. No way. All right, so I'm just going to orient my diamond so it's straight, and that's going to help me figure out to make sure my banner is on straight. Okay, now I kind of feel like we need a little something up here. So I'm going to add, maybe I'll just add a couple leaves and a flower. That's what we're going to do. So I'm just going to go leaf here. Come here, take your pick. See what I mean? It is so much easier to not have to actually handle these little leaves. Your take your pick is your best friend when you're dealing with little teeny bits like these. And then we're going to grab a flower and we're going to pop it on up here. Yep, that's what was missing. All right, so now we are ready to adhere this to the front of our card. But before we do that, we're going to decorate these panels here. So to start, this top panel, this is the one that's part of our spine, okay? We're going to decorate just with another piece of espresso cardstock, again, and embossed with the timber embossing folder. So this one is cut to 1 3/8 by 4 1/8, okay? So that is going to get glued right there. So we'll just add a little liquid glue and pop that on, just like that. Okay, and then I have some gingham. This is the new gingham DSP in Lemon Lime Twist. You'll notice it's a little bit lighter in shade to the leaves. I wanted a little bit of contrast. So this one is going to get glued right here on that section, and it is cut to 1 3/4 by 4 1/8. Okay, again, all of these measurements will be in the description later on this evening after I eat my dinner. I will go in and add those for you. Okay, so there we go. Now we are ready to go ahead and add our focal image. So again, I'm going to add just a little liquid glue here just so that I can get this wiggled into position exactly the way I want it. And I'm going to line this up. Now I'm going to have just a narrow little bit of an espresso border along the bottom. Okay, I'll hold that up so you can see. Can you see that little bit of a border there? Okay, and that is essentially going to form our card. Now, before we glue this all down, we are going to add on the inside, we're going to add a basic white panel right here, just because I wanted a little bit extra space to write my greeting. Okay, so my sentiment is going to go here, and we are going to actually write our greeting on this piece here. So I'm going to stamp my sentiment, if I can find it, in Early Espresso. So let's just stamp that real quick, centered-ish, hopefully straight. There we go. You guys are very quiet. I hope I'm still live. I hope you're still there. Not seeing a lot of action in the comments. Okay, so I want to make sure my card is going to open this way. So when I glue this on, I want to make sure that I'm gluing this right side up. That's just a little caution. We don't want our sentiment to be upside down when we open the card. Okay, and then we are going to add our inner panel. Now this piece is going to go inside our card like this. This piece is going to get popped up to catch our easel like that. All right, so we're going to go ahead and add some dimensionals to our gingham piece. Again, this is a great time to use your edge pieces whenever you have a larger piece that you are wanting to pop. Your edges are your best friend. So I'm going to pull this one across here and this one across the bottom, and we'll use a little bit of a corner here. Pop that there. And one more just in the middle so it doesn't squish. All right. So again, we'll get rid of our backings. There we go. Whoops, that one tore. Let's just make sure that comes off. And then I'm going to line this up. Now this piece is 4 1/8 by 3 7/8. Okay, this white piece. So I'm going to glue this, and I want to make sure it's flush with the bottom edge of my white cardstock. So I'm going to put it against my espresso because I have a really hard time seeing white on white. So I'm just going to really take my time to line up those edges and make sure, because that is going to be visible, right? We want to make sure that that is nice and neat and tidy. So now we can glue that inside our card. So we'll pop that in like that. And I always like to close my card just to make sure that my edges are nice and clean and they line up. Okay. Now, the last thing we need to do before we glue our spine down is add our ribbon. So I have a little ribbon trick for you. I love this beautiful new ribbon. It's called, what's it called? Bordered ribbon. It's pecan pie, and like it's got pecan pie on the edges and kind of a craft in the middle. It looks like a woven ribbon, like a, almost like a twill, but it's really, really soft and supple. But I wanted it to actually gather, so I'm going to show you this little ribbon trick. So I'm going to take a bottle. I have, this is an old, we no longer sell this size refill bottle. This is an old bottle, and I like it. I kept it. There's not actually Stampin' Mist in here anymore. It's just water. But I kept it because I like to have a little bit of weight so my bottle will stand up. And what we're going to do is take a length of ribbon. Now you want to make sure you have enough so that you're going to be able to tie a bow. Okay, so we're going to wrap it around our bottle. I'm going to cross my left over right, bring it around and through. Okay, so now I have my pieces are still nice and flat. My ribbon is nice and flat. There's no twisting. Then I'm going to make a loop in my right hand. I'm going to bring my left piece that's on the bottom around and through. Okay, again, I want to keep my ribbon flat. I don't want to let it twist. Okay, now that doesn't look super nice right yet, but I'm going to slide it off the bottle. And then the first thing I'm going to do is pull that loop that I just slid off the bottle nice and tight. And that is going to give me a nice tight knot on my bow. And I'm going to grab my ribbon scissors because this is ribbon that you want to use good scissors with. So I'm going to fork my ends just because this tends to fray a little bit. So I'm going to fold in half and trim. I'm going to trim this off of my roll. Get that out of the way. And then same thing, I'm going to fold in half and trim. Okay. And that way I get a really pretty tight knot, and my bow just is kind of almost a focal point on the card. So now to adhere this, I'm going to just basically take my loop. I'm going to snip it right in the middle. So I'm holding where the bow is, and I'm snipping it. Okay. I'm going to glue dot the knot of the bow. So we're going to press that into a glue dot. I'm going to adhere that right above the peak of my little birdhouse there. Okay. Then I'm going to open my card, and I'm going to add a little bit of seal where my ribbon's going to wrap. Okay, I want my ribbon to wrap centered. So you just want to pay attention. It's going to wrap around in centered on that little section there. And then check it from the front. Make sure it's where you want it. Okay, and now we're ready to go ahead and seal our spine on our book fold. So I'm going to go ahead and add more seal. You could use tear and tape. You could use liquid glue. The ribbon is a little bit problematic with the liquid glue, but it'll still work. And then we're going to close our card and burnish that really, really well to make sure that that is adhered. Okay, and that gives us our easel. Now I felt like these little sections were too plain, so I had one more little bit of a branch here, and I just decided to add just a little something up here and another little something down here, down the bottom. So we're just going to pop this on, and then we're going to add a couple more little leaves here. So one there and one there, and then maybe one here. So I'll grab my take your pick again. Whoops, I've got all my little backings of all of my various adhesives here. So there's one. Now can you see why I wanted some contrast with the leaves? Okay, the darker leaves stands out quite nicely against the lighter gingham. So we'll add this guy here. And then I'm going to bring back my few remaining flowers here. And we're going to add one up here. And one down here. I'm going to lift that up so that it's kind of peeking out. Okay, and then the last step is to just trim off where it's overhanging the edge of the card. Just tidy that up. Whoopsie. There we go. Done and done. You like that one? All right. Glad you like it. And look at, I still have leaves left over. So many leaves. All right, let's clean up the mess, and I'm going to show you the last one. If you like this one, you're going to love the last one. I'm telling you right now. All right, so continuing with the birdhouse theme, because, well, you know, with a bird, you have to play up the birdhouse. So here is another fun fold that is an actual birdhouse. So the card folds flat. The finished size is still 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. Okay, this is still going to fit into a standard envelope, but it opens up like this. Is that not the coolest fold? This is actually inspired by a swap card that I received on the incentive trip. This lady had used the Countryside Inn DSP, and I was like, oh, that'd make a perfect birdhouse. So here we go. I'm going to show you how to make this. It is so much easier than you think. All right. So here we go. Again, I made a template. All right. So here is my template. It opens like this. So as you can see, it is a piece of cardstock that is 5 1/2 by 11 inches. So not quite a full sheet of cardstock. So it's a little bit more than a regular card. Okay, so 5 1/2 by 11. And then I'm going to show you our scoring, but I'll just show you real quick. If you want to take a screenshot, we're finding the halfway point, which is 5 1/2 inches, right? On an 11-inch length. 5 1/2 is the middle. And we're going to score from that middle point out to each corner. Okay, then we're going to find 3 1/2 inches in from each corner along the bottom and up from each corner along the sides, and we're going to score 2 vertically up to the diagonal score line and 2 horizontally. It's really simple. I'm going to show you. We're going to do it right now. So I'm going to bring in my trimmer, and I've got my cardstock, and we're going to do this. So to start, again, this is 5 1/2 by 11 inches. Okay, so it's almost a full sheet of cardstock. I'm going to start by using my grid paper, the ruler here, and I'm going to mark 5 1/2 inches on one of the long sides. Okay, that's our midpoint. So I'm just going to take a pencil and put a little tick at the 5 1/2 mark. Okay, then I'm going to bring in my trimmer, and we are going to score from that little tick mark down to the opposite corner. Let me do it this way. When I say down, so I'm actually scoring down. So there's my tick mark. I'm going to score from there down to the opposite corner. Okay, so I'm scoring from there down to that bottom right corner. Now, when you are scoring, you want to make sure that you are starting not on a point. If I start my scoring blade here, I run the risk of bending that corner, and we don't want to do that. So I'm just lining up that tick mark in the cutting track and that corner, and I'm going to score. Okay, so now I have one score line on the diagonal. I'm going to do the same thing the other way. So I'm lining up my tick mark. Let's see if I can get this in the camera view here so you can see it. So lining up my tick mark and that corner, again, starting on the long edge rather than the point, and scoring. Okay, so that's really the most crucial starting point, is finding that center piece and then scoring on the diagonal. I'm going to set my trimmer aside again. And now we're going to measure 3.5 inches. So I have my score line. So my point of my little triangle that I've scored here is facing upwards. And I'm going to measure 3.5 inches in from the left corner. So 3.5 inches here, and 3.5 inches up from the bottom corner, from the bottom left corner. So 3.5 and 3.5. Okay. I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. So this time I'm going to rotate my cardstock, and I'm going to go 3.5 and 3.5. All right, so now I have 2 tick marks, 3.5 inches in from each end, and 2 tick marks, 3.5 inches up from each side. Okay. All right. Hi, Krista. Welcome. Now it's a matter of scoring. So I'm going to start. Doesn't really matter. I'll start with this first 3.5 inch score line. And you can actually put your paper in at 3.5 inches. And we're going to score. I'm going to get my cutting blade well out of the way so that I don't run the risk. Actually, I'm going to take my cutting blade right out. Let's get that out of there. So we don't run the risk of cutting by mistake. That has happened to me more times than I care to count. All right, so I'm going to start. I'm going to score from the bottom edge up to the diagonal score line. So I'm going to kind of put my finger where that score line is, just so that I make sure that I stop. Okay, so there's my score line. Okay, now I'm going to do the same thing at this second tick mark. Okay, again, I'm going up to that score line. Okay, then I'm going to rotate, and I'm going to do on the short side, so 3.5 inches. Okay, and then rotate again, do the other side, also at 3.5 inches. All right, so there we go. That's it. That's all that's involved. Okay, so we did our 2 diagonal score lines, and then we're doing in from the side to that diagonal, up from the bottom to that diagonal on both sides. All right. Okay. So the next thing we need to do is burnish these 2 diagonal folds really, really well. So I'm going to fold down. Now this is where you really want to take your time and make sure that your edges line up, that you get a nice straight even finish here. I'm going to come back. I'm going to fold the opposite way. The more you burnish these folds, the easier your card will come together. Okay, so I'm just going to fold a couple of times each way, get them burnished really, really well. I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. So again, folding this in, making sure that this is nice and tidy. And you can actually do this with this other flap folded shut, because if you do want those 2 to meet in the middle. This is like a gate fold. Okay, so there's that. Again, I'm going to fold this back. And again, making sure this is nice and neat. And one more time. Okay, so there are our diagonal folds. Okay, now my 2 horizontal folds here, I'm going to pinch. I'm not going to actually fold them. I'm just going to kind of pinch them to encourage the start of a fold. Let's put it that way. So I'm just kind of pinching them. These 2 on the bottom, I'm going to fold inwards. So this is going to pinch inwards, and this is going to pinch inwards. And what you're going to find as you do this, you're going to, come on, you just have to encourage it. There we go. And as you sort of work it and pinch them and encourage, eventually you'll be able to pull those sides together into your birdhouse. Okay, so those ones folded in, and it just kind of tucks in together like that. Is that not a magical fold? I wish I had invented it. I'm not that smart, but I think this is just amazing. Now, again, you're going to want to really burnish these folds very, very well to make sure that this is going to lie relatively flat. Okay? All right. That's all there is to making this fold. Now we're going to decorate. So let me dump out my bits and pieces here. So for our these two panels, again, this is our horse and sleigh, one horse open sleigh DSP. So it's the same kind of deal. We're going to cut on a diagonal. So these layers, and I did write this down, measure 1 7/8 by 1 5/8. Okay. And then I'm marking, what did I mark? 1 7/8 down from the top. So I marked, so I've got it on here. 1 7/8 down from the top, and I'm going to cut on the diagonal. So this one I did one way, this one I did the other, so that our pieces match our house. Now I'm going to just grab my guillotine, because I like to chop these corner pieces with my guillotine. You can use a regular trimmer too. So again, I'm lining up that little tick mark, that 1 7/8 tick mark, with the opposite corner and chopping. So now I have my 2 layers for the front of my house. Okay. All right. So we are going to glue these guys on. You're going to find you have a narrow little border. I am going to erase this. We're not really going to see it, but just in case, let's get this out of the way. So we're going to glue our layers on. And again, I like to use liquid glue so that I can kind of wiggle these into place to make sure that they are exactly where I want them, centered and all. I'm not worrying too much about that being perfect at the top. I'm more worried about the bottom and sides being equal, because this top part is going to get covered by our roof. Okay, and then same thing here. You guys like this card? Is it not neat? I love it. It would work really well with the Songbird Builder Punch too, to make a cute little bird with that one. But I love all the branches and all the little die bits that you get with this die set. Okay, so there is our front of our house. Next, we are going to add our roof. So again, these are 1/2 inch strips. You'll notice that they are not the same length this time. One is a little bit shorter than the other. The short one is 3 inches. The longer one is 3.5. Okay, again, they're embossed using the timber embossing folder. So I'm going to start with my shorter piece. It's going to get glued to that top edge, and then this one is going to get layered over top. Now, there is the reason that these are not the same length is because, and I'll show you on my sample, when the card opens, our roof comes apart. So unlike on the last card where we actually glued these 2 pieces together at the top, this has to stay loose so that our card will open properly. Okay, hence the different lengths. All right. Okay, so our shorter piece is going to go on the left side. So I'm going to go ahead again and add a little bit of glue here. And we're going to adhere our short piece. We'll slide that down just a smidge. And I always like to, again, look at the back and just make sure that that's nice and tidy. There we go. Okay. And then our longer piece is going to overlap, but not get glued at the top. So I'm going to glue up to the sort of peak, but not over it. So I'm going to overlap, line up the ends so that they're flush, but I want to make sure that that piece is not glued at the top. Okay. Again, I'm going to flip this over and just make sure that that's on nice and straight. Oh, got a little bit of crushed curry ink, or Cajun Craze ink on the back of my card. All right, there we go. Next, we're going to add our little door on our birdhouse. So again, because this is a gate fold, we're only going to secure it to one side. Doesn't really matter which side. I did it on the left side. You could absolutely do it on the right. I just did it on the left because I knew that's where my bird was going to go, and I wanted to be able to secure it. So this is going to get glued. I am going, did I pop this up? Yes, I did. So an easy trick for making sure you put your dimensionals in the right spot. You flip it over, you flip your piece over. You're going to grab your dimensionals and only put them on the side where you want them to go. Okay, get rid of your backings and then flip it back over and stick. Okay, and that way you end up making sure your dimensionals are where you want them. Okay, all right, now is again just a matter of decorating. So we have a long branch. It's going to get stuck to the front on the left side. So this again is cut from Crumb Cake cardstock with adhesive sheets on the back. They're an absolute must-have with this particular branch, in my opinion. And then our short little guy is going to go up here. Get rid of our backing. Are you guys still there? I always get nervous when it gets quiet because I'm like, are they still there? I never know if I'm still live. I always wonder if I've lost my connection. All right, so there we go. There are our branches. Now this time it's super quick and easy to add our leaves because we have stamped and die cut them all at once. So I'm going to add a few mini dimensionals to the back of my die cut here. And I need to think about the fact that part of this die cut is going to overlap my window. Okay, so these leaves here are not going to require dimensionals because they're going to overlap the window like that. Okay, so we're going to just pop this on. Get rid of our backings, and I'll add just a smidge of like a glue where it's going to overlap the window. And you'll see when you go to glue these on that you can orient them so that it looks like the leaves are actually attached to the branch, which is quite magical. Okay. Then we're going to do the same thing at the top. Now this smaller branch, you can actually create a branch where it looks like the leaves are attached. We just need to do a little bit of trimming. So I'm going to, let me just think about what I did here. We are going to trim off right along here. And we're going to trim right along here. Okay, now we are going to use those little leaves, so we're not going to waste them. But those are then going to get adhered, and I need to cut off this little single leaf here too, because it looks like it's floating in space. We want our leaves to be anchored to branches. All right, there we go. So we're going to add a couple of dimensionals to that. Okay, Sonia, you're liking this one? Okay, thank you for letting me know you're still out there. Okay, let's get rid of our backings here. And we're going to pop this on. Again, making sure our leaves are actually attached to the branch. Okay, and then we're going to add our little bird. So again, I have already gone ahead and stamped and die cut him. So this time he's stamped in basic gray ink, colored with gray granite and ivory and light crumb cake. All right, so again, he's going to get glued. We're going to put a little mini dimensional sort of in amongst the leaves here. But then I'm also going to add a bit of seal as soon as I find my seal, because he is going to overlap the window as well. So we're just going to kind of pop him on right there. Okay. Next, we're going to work on our banner. So this again is from the Stitched Shapes dies, and we are going to make this a birthday card. So we're going to stamp our happy birthday wishes. So I'm going to add my sentiment in gray granite ink, just centered on our little banner here. Okay, and then that is going to go on right about there. Now, this is going to get popped up. We are going to add one more little branch because I felt like it needed a little something here. So we're going to add this last little branch. Come here. There we go. And I'm just thinking about where this is going to go. So I want it to kind of be peeking out from behind my banner. Okay, and this is where I'm going to use these extra little leaves that we had. So I'm going to trim this off here. And these guys are going to get adhered just like that. Actually, maybe we'll do those like that. I like that better. So again, a couple more dimensionals. 1 and 2. And we'll pop them on right there. And then where'd my last, oh, it stuck to my fingers. This one's going to go on right here. So we don't waste anything. No wasted leaves. Pop that one on there. Okay, so that is going to go on right about there like that. So we're going to add a couple of dimensionals to the front of our card, right next to our leaves, our branch rather. And that is going to go on right there. So we'll get rid of our backings and pop that on. Again, you want it to be straight and hopefully relatively centered. So right about there works. Okay, then I felt like there was a big empty space there. So again, we still have some extra leaves. So we're just going to add them. I'm just going to use a couple glue dots here just for speed. So we'll go 1 and 2. So we'll go 1 here. And this little guy needs to tuck underneath because he's got a trimmed edge and we don't want to see it. There we go. Okay. And then the last touch for the front of the card is a little bit of linen thread. As soon as I figure out what I did with it, there it is. So we'll tie a quick little bow with our linen thread. Thank you. I'm glad you like it. I had so much fun playing with this little bird. I was playing up the bird set. Birds big time. All right, so that is going to get glued right to the little inner point of our banner. So to glue that, I'm just going to take a glue dot. I'm going to roll it into a little glue booger here and press it onto that point. And I'm going to make my bow just a teensy bit smaller. And we're going to press the knot of our bow right into that little glue booger so it stays put. Okay, now on the inside, I kept it super simple. We are going to add just a layer to write a greeting. You certainly could, if you were so inclined, you could decorate with DSP or stamp or whatever on the inside of this if you wanted to. I just felt like there was enough going on in the front that we could keep it pretty plain on the inside. So I'll just show you how to create that peaked layer for the inside. So this piece is cut. Let me move my sample out of the way. This is cut to 3 3/4 by 5 1/2. Okay, is that right? 3 3/4 by, let me make sure. This is the wrong length. It should be 3 3/4 by, oh no, it is right. 3 3/4 by 5 1/4. I just can't read a ruler. And then I've measured down 1 7/8 on both sides. Okay, and we're going to chop that off. So I'm just going to again bring in my guillotine here. I found my center point and chop, and then same thing, center point and chop. Okay, now you can erase your pencil marks or you can just flip it over. You won't see them if you flip over. I did on my sample, where is my sample? Stamp the branch and the leaves and then colored them with my Stampin' Blends. I'm not going to take the time to do that right now. We'll just go ahead and glue that inside. Again, using liquid glue so we have time to get this wiggled into place before the glue sets up. Oh, we got a little piece of a sticky branch stuck on the inside of our card. Oh, and of course I put the glue on the side that didn't have the pencil marks, so I will have to erase them after all. So we'll just grab our little ruler and get rid of those little pencil ticks. There we go. All right, now I did add on both cards, I forgot to do it on the last card, I did add some brushed brass butterflies because I felt like it needed just a little something in addition to our little birdie to decorate and add a little bit of embellishment here. So we're just going to add a couple of these little guys. So one here, and we'll put one sort of down here, and we'll put a little guy up here like that. Okay. And that is that. Birdhouse card number 2. Do you like that one? All right. Let me bring back all of my samples here from today, and then I'm going to show you a couple more before I let you go. So as you can see, I forgot to add my little butterflies on the one that I demonstrated, but just added a couple more on my sample. And then again, I wanted to highlight the fact that this stamp set and die set is super versatile and makes cards for every season. So I put together the exact same card, exact same layout, simply changed the color scheme and created cards for every season. So here we go with fall. There's summer. There's spring. I used the flowers. And there's winter with the berries. So easy peasy, same card, just color scheme change, totally changes the season. So one of the best values in the catalog, in my opinion, because of its versatility. I'll just quick show you a couple more. Here's one I posted yesterday, a 4-season card, just using the dies. Okay, so this one's all about the dies. And then here I paired it with more of that horse and sleigh, a 1-horse open sleigh DSP from the online exclusives, and turned it into a birthday card because I think it works absolutely perfectly as a birthday card. So there we go. All right. Okay, ladies, thanks for joining me today. I know it was a bit of a long one, but I had to show you those two fun, oh, I'm really cockeyed here. I had to show you those two really fun Birdhouse cards. I hope you enjoyed them. Again, all the measurements will end up in the video description in case you missed them. Okay? All right, everybody, have a great week, and I will see you again next week for another episode of Tuesday Live at 5. Bye for now.